Are there other artists that you would recommend looking at or that you really like?
I don't know. I think it's just Dylan and myself that are doing
Uh,
it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, there's some fantastic landscape artists. There's wonderful figure, Daphne Pulsifer. I'm sorry, is she here? Yes, she's wonderful figurative sculptor. Susan Gilbert, wonderful landscape artist, plein air painter. And I wonder if it's something because, in order to make our images of birds, we have to stylize them, both Dylan and myself.
Yeah.
We sort of have to abstract them. We can't sort of render every feather. And so I think, that lends itself more to, a figure like a bird than, say, a landscape.
Yeah, as far as other artists go, I think there's too many to name for Monhegan artists because there's just such a rich community, and the Lupin Gallery is great about showing a lot of contemporary Monhegan artists. But as far as artists that do birds that I'm really into, there's a guy, Charlie Harper, who isn't around anymore, but he had a long career of doing these very stylized, minimalist birds. He did a lot of nature stuff in general, but Charlie Harper is one of my biggest inspirations and one of my favorite artists. And then there's a contemporary painter who goes by the name of the Mincing Mockingbird. And he does some kind of realistic oil paintings of birds and they're always titled with really like smart, funny titles, commentary kind of titles. So those two, Charlie Harper and the Mincing Mockingbird, are good bird ones. I'm sure that there's probably some other great ones that I'm not thinking of right now, but those guys are great.
Were there any other questions in the comments that didn't get answered, or?
There are a few. Hi, everybody. This is Lisa, for those of you who don't know me, and those of you who do. Hey. Yeah, a lot of cheering and, comments about how great you both are, which I will agree with. I don't know if you, Dylan and Asher, can read through the comments, but there's some nice little comments about birds people have seen. So clearly you're inspiring people. And I think, as you said, Graham, yeah, people are probably a little more aware of birds. Some of the questions that were asked were answered, but I guess this one hasn't. Do either of you have a favorite bird, either aesthetically, like one that you like to do a lot, or based on their behaviors? This is a question from Claire.
Sure. For me, I love the red-winged blackbirds, which we see in the meadow in the middle of Monhegan's village. The red-winged blackbirds are just so striking to me. And the grackles are great. There's like a mean blue jay that sits on a tree outside our kitchen window that scares everyone else away that I really like. There's just so many, but the red-winged blackbird is probably my favorite. And I've done paper cuttings of them like maybe 2 or 3 times. I'd like to do some more. Asher?
For me, it has to be the great blue heron. I have some big posters I did. I think for a man who wanted a background for his Zoom meetings, I did some more copies. So yeah, the great blue heron, closely followed by the night heron, the black-capped night heron. I like herons. We see them here in the Philadelphia area. There's one we see, I don't know if it's the same heron, pretty much every day when we walk our dog, and then we see them in Monhegan when they pass through or visit. I always love seeing them. So yeah.
Good, thanks. This is another question for Asher. Do you intentionally reverse the images to get a certain composition orientation prior to cutting the lino? This is from Baker.
Oh, that's a really good question. I frequently forget to reverse the images, which is really awkward when I'm doing lettering. And also, like, I sometimes forget to reverse the image when I'm doing the second color. So the first color and the second color are the wrong way around. But yes, I try to take into account reversing the image. But it's, you know, it's like one of those things is you can't completely predict how it's going to look. For me, the big issue is I've done some portraits, and you have to be really careful with portraits because you can have an original sketch that looks exactly like the person you're doing it, and then it comes out as a print backwards and it looks nothing like the person. So yeah, I would say portraits are like the hardest thing to do for printmakers. But yeah, reversing is a big thing, and I often forget to do it.
I can attest to that. I've seen.
You hear the curses from my studio.
Yes. And Asher and I had to go use our computers in separate rooms in our house because we were creating a lot of weird feedback. So that's why I'm in one room, he's in another. I don't know if this is a question for Asher or Diller from Steve and Kathy. What do you see as the difference between a photo and your rendition? I'm guessing that's more for Asher.
Well, a photo, I mean, a photo that is like a real work of art in its own right. I mean, I'm not going to improve on that. But with my own pictures, I often, like for instance, I did the Screech Owls, the blue one in the show, the two Screech Owls, and that was like a combination of photos that I actually took of a captive screech owl at the Eagle Fest down in South Jersey. That was like a little screech owl perched on a perch, I guess. And I looked at it and I kind of studied it and took some photos and sort of combined everything to make my images of the screech owls. So, and I think I tried screech owls before just from photos and just from, you know, other people's drawings really that I picked up on the internet. And it really, I felt like the first time I really saw a screech owl enough to make a piece of art from it was at the Eagle Fest when there was one a few feet in front of me. And mostly I try to make prints of birds that I've actually seen in the wild. Occasionally captive. I mean, the screech owl sort of wasn't really in the wild, it was captive. But, you know, I do a lot of herons. I see a lot of herons. I didn't do a night heron until I saw a night heron. You know, I did a minor bird after a minor bird pecked away some of my finger in a wildlife reserve in South America. You know, but I did get a chance to look at it very carefully while it was jabbing its beak into my hand. So yeah, there's a big difference between art and photos, but photos can be helpful. Like if I want to get the details of markings. I don't think of my prints yet as being, you know, zoologically accurate. But I'm trying to get them as accurate as possible. You know, like there's a specific number of primary feathers that define a particular species. You know, is it 9? Is it 8? Is it 6? And I think I seldom get that right at the moment. I'm more like about the movement and the drama of the creature rather than being precise. You know, there's somebody like Audubon managed both like drama and zoological accuracy. Sorry, I'm rambling on. I don't know if I really answered it. I hope I answered the question. It's a good question.
Maybe we'll make this the last question. I think it might actually be the last question from Ian McDonald, who is 6 years old and really likes bird watching and is very happy to listen to you. So hi, Ian, if you're still there. And he asks, Dylan, what is your favorite bird to make, which you may have already answered a little bit. And then he asked Asher about the peregrine falcon. He wanted to know if that was the last image that you had shown. So I don't know if Dylan, you want to take that first?
Sure. Well, I'll pick another bird because I said that I really love the red-winged blackbirds, but as far as my favorite to make, I've really been getting into the crows lately. And I think part of the reason why is because when you look at the crow, they're all black. So for me, I try to find a way to incorporate some subtle coloring in the crows. And a lot of times it's just by putting like a light, usually like a pink or a purple underneath, just like little flecks of color, you know, in the shapes of their feathers. And to me, that's just like, it's a fun little like subtle thing I can do with this black bird that I don't want to just be like a one color thing. So that's been fun for me lately. But you know, one of the reasons that I love doing all these bird paper cuttings at all is because there's just so many varieties, and I can just get up one morning and just say like, today I'm going to do a robin, or today I'm going to do a heron, you know, and it's just, you just kind of get lost in that for a little while, and it never feels like it's going to get old because there's just so many varieties out there. So, you know, every day I could answer the question differently. Thanks, Ian.
So yeah, Asher, Ian wanted to know how you made that last bird, the peregrine falcon, if there was anything different about it.
Oh, it's actually a kestrel.
Okay.
It's very closely related to the peregrine, but it's a bit smaller. I start with background and foreground, and you know, so the foreground of the bird is an outline print. You've got the outlines, and then I remove that space from the background, and I can print on top of. I can lay the outline print over the background. Registration is quite a complex process for any sort of printmaking. So it's 4 blocks. There's a background block. It's a line block of the bird and 2 color blocks for the colors on the bird. And I use the white of the paper, or it's actually slightly off white paper for the white of, you know, in between the colors. I don't know if that answers your question. It's sort of like I think again, this is something similar with paper cutting. It's like you have to work backwards. You know, it's almost like you work from the final layer back to the first layer, and
Ian just
then you have to come back forward again.
Ian McDonald just gave you a thumbs up, so you did answer the question. Yes, thank you. I think that's about it. Other than a lot of, you know, compliments. Baker loves the colors of your grackle, Dylan. There was an egret, according to Jess Stevens, in the meadow on Monhegan yesterday. Is that everything? Do you want me to? Oh, here's one last question. Should we have time for that?
Sure.
From Stacy Crescetti. Oh no, wait, sorry. From Lucy. Do you only do birds that come to Monhegan?
No.
No.
I think this show limited to Monhegan Birds, but no, definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay, that was an easy one. All right, I'll hand it over back to you, Graham, and thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for your questions.
Bye to work, everybody.
Yeah, so does anybody have anything else they want to ask or say before we sign off?
I'd like to encourage everyone to go to the Ocean House Gallery website and take a good look at this stuff, because most of you won't have the opportunity to go to the gallery and see it in person. But it's Graham did a really nice job of showcasing it all up there. So
yeah, and if you are in the area and you want to come in, you can make an appointment, and you can come in. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And yeah, this was great.